Here in the studio with me now is Egemen Bağış, the former Turkish Minister of EU Affairs. Egemen, thank you so much for coming in on this day. Can you just take us back to your personal reflections? Where were you? Where did you find the news? What were you doing?
Well, July 15 events were not only an attempt to overthrow the democratically elected government. It was an attempt to invade this country, to bring about some chaos, and to turn this country into a puppet. And the Turkish nation stood up and changed the course. They have tried this in other countries. Those who have infiltrated various governments have succeeded at times. But here in Turkey, people from different walks of life, pro-government or even anti-government, stood together, united, and they said, this is a democratic country. We decide who runs this country. We will not let those who are under instructions from other powers to create chaos succeed. Had it succeeded, it would have been a disaster, not only for Turkey and her allies, but for the whole region. I personally was in Switzerland that morning, and I had a meeting with an important company which was planning to do an investment here in Turkey. And I had convinced them with my...
with your charm and your professionalism.
No, with the facts that we now had a new prime minister. At that time, Mr. Yildirim had been sworn into office. He had great relations with President Erdogan, despite his predecessor. And together, they were in the beginning of establishing a new investment zone, and Turkey would be achieving great results. That was one of the reasons maybe the whole coup attempt or this event took place. And my counterparts, the company, was convinced, and they said, okay, we're planning to invest in somewhere in between 300 to 400 million euros into your country.
So this is the morning before the coup became apparent in the evening?
Yes. And that night, when I heard what was happening, I turned my hotel room into a communication center.
Yeah.
I was talking to our foreign minister, Mr. Çavuşoğlu, at that time. I was talking to the advisors of our president. I was talking to my friends in the cabinet and trying to convince my network, my colleagues. I spoke with various foreign ministers of EU countries as a former EU minister.
You were at an advantage maybe because you weren't inside Turkey,
yes,
of course.
And most of the statements that were made pro-democratically elected government were results of my efforts.
Yeah.
One of the people I spoke with that night was Dimitris Avramopoulos, who was at that time Commissioner of European Union from Greece in charge of migration. And he had been mayor of Athens when President Erdogan was mayor of Istanbul, so they were friends.
Yeah.
He called out and said, how is my friend doing?
Yeah.
Is he okay? I'm getting some disturbing news. Are you guys all right? I said, yes, we are okay. Thank God he's healthy. But we need Mr. Juncker, who was head of the commission, to speak against, to condemn this attempt and to support the concept of democracy in Turkey. Mr. Juncker was in a plane going to Mongolia. It was very difficult to reach him. But Mr. Avramopoulos, at the end, did reach him and convinced them to instruct the High Representative for Foreign Policy to make a statement. Another person I spoke with was Miguel Moratinos, who was former... Another person I spoke with was Miguel Moratinos, who was former foreign minister of Spain. Currently, he is deputy undersecretary, he's the undersecretary of United Nations in charge of Alliance of Civilizations, and I'm proud to serve on the same board with him at as one of the members of the high-level advisory group of United Nations Alliance of Civilizations. And he also reached out to a lot of European colleagues to convince them that this was unacceptable. This was not something that any democratic institution could spoke to many leaders. And that night, of course, next morning I flew back to Istanbul and tried to support the process here. But the minute I personally heard that Mr. Erol Olçok, who was a very dear friend, he was the campaign manager of all our election campaigns, all our media campaigns in Turkey. When I heard him and his son had lost their lives, they were martyred, that was for me the worst moment of that night, because I thought we had lost it. I thought...
Egemen, we're going to run out of time, and in fact I'm being told that we're almost out of time, but I cannot let you go without just one more reflection. You've given us really a broad analysis, political as well as personal. But when you saw the pictures, because presumably on the night itself, I was in the UK. I knew a coup was going on. I was in contact with people who became my colleagues here in the office at TRT World saying, I think there's a coup happening in your country. When the pictures were eventually shown of civilians all over the country coming out in the middle of the night, pretty much some of them in their pajamas and holding slippers against tanks, is that the Turkish people? That they put their lives on the line like this?
I'm proud to be one of them.
Quite amazing, huh?
Isn't it? I mean, everyone can criticize the democratic standards of other countries. But tell me another country where people would sacrifice, not 1, 2, millions of people, would sacrifice their own lives, would take the risk of dying just to protect the stability, democracy of their country. At times, we might have our differences. We might support different football teams. We might have different versions of belief, of lifestyle. But that night, people from all different walks of life united against the tyranny, against the Gülenists who wanted to create a chaos. And they said, no, we will not let you do this. And I think that's real patriotism. That's real love for the country, for the flag, for the nation, and that's really united we stand approach.
Honestly, just from a personal point of view, for me as an outsider, I see it as Turkey's Tiananmen Square moment. That
even
one man
better than that.
who was standing up to the tank.
Even better than that.
Yeah.
Because many people did not hesitate, even for a second, did not blink their eyes to lose their lives for the sake of the country.
Absolutely.
And I think that was a very important message. It still is, but the most important message is we cannot afford to forget. If we do, we might relive what we did. So we have to keep this attitude and this unification alive. We might have our differences. This is great in democracies. It's just richness. But we all have to have our commitment to protect the well-being of the country.
It's so wonderful that you're here in the studio. We've spoken down the line for many years and you finally came in. Egemen Bağış, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot.